So thank you very much again. Let's move on then to the cohort presentations. We have Damien, who is first in line to present an overview of UK cohorts. Damien, are you ready?
Ready? Hopefully I'll be able to share my screen. Does that appear okay, Michelle?
That looks good. So Damien, you have 10 minutes.
Okay, so Michelle asked me to give an overview of the UK cohorts that are in the OMEGANet inventory of cohorts. So, just bear with. Okay, so there's 16 UK cohorts, and obviously in 10 minutes I can't go into any of them in any great depth, but I'll do my best to give you a brief overview of the different cohorts. So the first one is a population-based cohort that's a birth cohort of people born in Aberdeen in the 1950s, and there's about 10,000 participants in that study. There was some employment details collected, and the outcomes looked at were death certificates, disease incidence records, and hospital physician diagnoses. And it's possible to access the data via a cohort steering group. The second study is a more traditional occupational study. It's a cohort of some 50,000 UK police officers, and access these again by a formal request to an access committee, and this group headed by Paul Elliott at Imperial College in London have stated that they are interested in participating in pooled analyses. So there's questionnaires and biomarkers for more than 80% of the study population. They've also linked to environmental GIS data. They've developed a job exposure matrix, and they're looking at a variety of outcomes, including lead exposure, noise, non-ionizing radiation, solar and UV radiation, sedentary work, and social support and shift working. They're looking at a variety of morbidity outcomes, and the data are available for linkage to cancer registry, mortality registers, medication databases, and hospital discharge data. Another population-based study is the sort of famous ALSPAC study, the Avon longitudinal study of parents and children. There's about 20,000 participants in this study, and there's biomarkers for blood, hair, urine, GWAS and metabolomics. There's linkage to death certificates and medical records, records of lifestyle changes, and examination of quality of life and well-being. They are potentially interested in pooled analyses, and again, linkage is possible with cancer incidence, hospital discharge data, and medication usage. Born in Bradford study, there is an executive group that oversees requests to access data. This is a prospective mother-child cohort established about 15 years ago, of women who gave birth at Bradford Royal Infirmary. And as you can see, there's about 15,000 adult participants and just under that in terms of children. There's active follow-up of disease incidence records and hospital physician diagnoses. There's breath samples, environmental samples, biomarkers, epigenomics, GWAS, and again, linkage with mortality, medication usage, and hospital discharge data. And I'm guessing cancer registration data, although they haven't stated as such. This is an international study that's coordinated by the UK, the European Community Respiratory Health Survey. It's coordinated by Debbie Jarvis at Imperial College, as well as in several European countries. It also includes data from North Africa, Australia, India, New Zealand, and the United States. And it's a prospective population-based cohort of 10,000 adults recruited in the early 1990s. There's various job exposure matrices that have been applied to the cohorts. There's full job histories and environmental samples and lifestyle data. There's chemical exposure, psychosocial and ergonomics, biomarkers, lung function tests, as you would expect from a respiratory health survey. And interestingly, data on sleep, sickness absence, and work participation, as well as epigenomics, GWAS, metabolomics. The Gemini Health and Development in Twins study, coordinated by Claire Llewellyn at University College London, is a prospective population cohort of just under 5,000 children. I'm not sure when it started and how many of those children are now adults, but there are biomarker data and morbidity data. And I think it's fair to say that it's focused on developmental aspects of children growing. So maybe perhaps less relevant for occupational studies. Another occupational cohort, which is managed by Nicola Fear at King's College London, is the Porton Down Veteran Study. This is quite a large retrospective cohort of 35,000 former servicemen exposed to chemical warfare agents, and a comparison group of over 17,000 service personnel who've never been to Porton Down. And it's followed up for mortality and cancer registrations, and periodic questionnaires are administered and linked to military personnel files. And there's the usual sort of UK-based outputs of links to cancer registration, hospital discharge, and medication use, mortality data, and also linkage to some disease-specific clinical databases. The Asbestos Workers Study is a very large study maintained by Anne-Helen Harding at the Health and Safety Executive. They are interested in pooled analysis. It's a prospective cohort study of over 100,000 licensed asbestos workers. And interestingly, it's a cohort that's still recruiting. There is some exposure data from the questionnaire, but I think it's fair to say that there isn't a proper exposure assessment associated with this cohort. And interestingly and quite useful, it also collects, because it's a prospective cohort, it's collected data on smoking as it's gone along. And another HSE study also managed by Anne-Helen Harding is the PIPA study, which is part of the International Agrico cohort coordinated by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. And it's over 5,500 professional pesticide users. There's questionnaires on lifestyle and links to various morbidity, mortality outcomes. And interestingly, there's also an annual questionnaire administered to the cohort. UK Biobank, everyone will have heard of. It's a population-based prospective cohort of 500,000 people in the UK, who the study coordinators are in active contact with. There's lifetime occupational histories and various biomarkers and clinical function evaluations, and links to death certificate, cancer incidence, and hospital discharge data. And there's a data access procedure in place for the UK Biobank. Understanding Society is a UK household longitudinal survey of over 40,000 households. Again, it's one the study coordinators are in active contact with, annual interviews, questionnaires. Occupations are coded, there's biomarkers, spirometry from the early waves, and data on quality of life, well-being, sleep and work participation. And the biomarkers have been used to extract DNA and look at epigenomics, GWAS, and lifestyle analyses. And Viking genes is a study from the University of Edinburgh. They're potentially interested in pooled analyses. It's an ongoing cohort of 8,000 people. biomarkers, blood and urine, various proteomics, excuse me, metabolomics and GWAS, links to medical records, cancer incidence, mortality and medication usage. And finally, the West of Scotland 27 study is coordinated by Louise Whitney at University of Glasgow. They're interested in collaborations. It's a fairly small cohort, this though, of about 4,000 adults and 1,500 children. There's questionnaires on job and self-reported exposures. They've looked at physical workload, sedentary work, standing work, and there's various clinical and functional evaluations, biomarkers, quality of life, etc., and links to hospital discharge and mortality data. I said finally, but there's also 3 cohorts that I've been responsible for, which are more traditional occupational cohorts. One of 40,000 rubber workers, just under 10,000 lead workers, and a very small study of styrene workers, which have the rubber and the lead has been involved in an IARC pooled analysis, and the styrene one is actively being involved in an ongoing study coordinated by Henrik Kolstad. The rubber, there was talk at one time of it being involved in an IARC pooled analysis, but nothing really has come of that. And Michelle and I are still trying to get the Whitehall 2 study to be added, but no success so far. I'm not sure we've given up quite yet, Michelle, but we'll perhaps have another go at trying to recruit that into the inventory. So that's me. Happy to take your question at this time.
Super. Thank you very much, Damien. Yeah, we'll keep trying to invite the Whitehall 2 study to participate in OMEGANet and also in UP4. Is there any question for Damien? We can take one question for Damien. I guess, Damien, it sounded like most of the cohorts that you've presented today are interested in collaboration.
Yeah, some have been explicit about that, and I guess they all are in practice, otherwise they wouldn't have put the data into.
That's true. That's true. Great. No, thanks. We have a great large number of cohorts from the UK in the inventory, so thanks for all your efforts in assisting there. I don't see any questions.